All right, guys. Yes, well, we're posting some more football videos because you guys are clicking on the baseball and hating on them. Smack Talk here, name code Dustin. So, whenever we're thinking about videos to post, we're getting a ton of questions in the forums. So first of all, if you want some football content, log on to FantasySmackTalk.com. We have a ton of stuff, active members in the forums, and we also have articles written, a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So in case you don't want to watch, you can also read some stuff as well. But this video is going to go over draft strategy. We get a million questions. Okay, I'm thinking of going RB, QB, wide receiver, tight end, RB. Is that smart? And that's pretty much crazy to us. So, and then especially really early, people will say, I have the 4th pick. What should my first 3 position picks be? So an early draft strategy, Dustin, give a little insight on what we think about the early draft strategy.
So, early draft strategy, it's still just best player available. The first round, what we're saying is in a 10-team league, the only person that should be drafted that's a non-running back is Calvin Johnson. But once you get the 12-team, 14-team leagues, towards the end of the first round, you could be looking at, a tight end or a quarterback. But it's really just which running back are you going to take in the first round, or are you going to take Calvin Johnson? And as far as when to take Calvin Johnson, I'm going to use kind of a blackjack analogy here. Yes, you can go by the book and take the next running back on the board, but if you have anywhere from like the 4th to 8th pick, that's the Calvin range, and you don't always have to go with the book and get a running back. Calvin Johnson is in a league of his own, and you'll see in a little bit later in this video why me personally, I think taking a receiver early is really the way to go if you're in that spot, because there's plenty of running backs that you can look at later that have huge upside.
Yeah, and so that's really the thing, especially in like a PPR league, Calvin. And again, first round, we're really talking about Calvin Johnson here. But in the second round, there's a lot of people come out and say, you got to go running back, running back. I don't necessarily think that's the case. You don't have to go running back in the second round if there's better value with the wide receivers on the board. Everyone keeps saying receivers so deep, it's the deepest position ever. But then Dustin, give them some feedback on why you don't necessarily think that's the case.
I mean, of course, the receiver position, you will always have guys that break out more frequently, or not necessarily frequently, but if more players each year come out of nowhere and break out at the receiver position than the running back position. But you got to get lucky to guess right about those guys. At the running back position, once you get out of the top 15, there's a lot of really almost guaranteed guys that are going to have good years if they stay healthy with huge upsides. And I'm talking about guys like David Wilson, MJD, DeMarco Murray, Lamar Miller, Bell, Bush, Sproles, like all these guys are, and these are our rankings, out of the top 15. But once you get out of the top 15 for receivers, you're looking at guys like Dwayne Bowe, Antonio Brown, Nix, Stevie Johnson. Yes, these guys.
Are you that excited about those guys compared to Lamar Miller?
Good, but I'm thinking you get at least one big name receiver in the first few rounds, and then you don't have to worry as much about them in later rounds, and then you can go after guys like MJD and David Wilson who are going to have at least good years if they stay healthy, and maybe even monster years.
So again, and it's all based on value. So if you're going through the second round of the draft and you're thinking, you know what, this is a solid running back right here. I really like Steven Jackson. It's between him and it's between Dez or AJ Green or something, and you really like Steven Jackson, go ahead and take Steven Jackson. We're not saying you have to go wide receiver or running back, wide receiver. Or you don't have to go running back, running back. You really have to go with the flow of the draft. So those questions are literally impossible to answer because who's going to be taken before. Now real quick, just go ahead.
I want to say one thing too. Go with people you get excited about. You can't really go wrong in the first few rounds as long as you stay up towards the top of the draft board. For that example, if you're between an AJ Green or Dez Bryant or Steven Jackson, and you're not one of the people that believes in Steven Jackson staying healthy and being able to do it then this year, go with the guy that you're excited about. You can't really go wrong there. It's either a top 3 receiver or a top 5 receiver or an aging running back. I mean, it's
just getting a jab. Jackson's gonna be money. But anyway, so real quick, I got 2 more little quick things to go. First is quarterbacks and tight ends. A lot of question, when should we be taking them? It does somewhat depend on the size of your league. 10-team leagues, we suggest waiting on a quarterback for the best value. And there's a great article that I wrote all about this on the site. So, it's basically you look at his perceived value. So Aaron Rodgers at the end of the second round, Drew Brees at the end of the second round is great value. We're perfectly fine with you taking there. That
even middle second.
Even the middle second for some. That locks them in, that locks you in with a stud player. Now, obviously, we've been saying all year, though, you wait on a quarterback because it is so deep. So if you want to pass on them and you keep waiting and you take, a Kaepernick wait, a Russell Wilson wait, late, an RG3, anything like that, that's perfectly fine too. So it's based on where you can get the good value. Tight end, on the other hand, we have a completely different view. Either you get Jimmy Graham, even the start of the second.
Graham or scram.
There you go. That's a little bit better for those that watched that other video we had, the tight end rankings, I think. Gates or Pats.
Gates or wait.
Either way. So if you don't get Jimmy Graham, then we highly suggest waiting, because the variance between the number 2 and number 5 and who's perceived as the number 8 tight end isn't going to be that huge. Jimmy's in a clear cut of his own. Those other guys are closely bunched together, and any of them can break out. So Vernon Davis one year had like 13 or 9 touchdowns, a lot of touchdowns. Last year he didn't have so many, so it's it can go up and down, a lot of flux there.
Unless Gronk really comes a long way in this next month or so and shows you that he's going to be healthy and ready for week 1, then you could maybe take him 3rd round or something along those lines if he really is giving you confidence that he's going to be healthy. But you really can't go into your draft with such a structured, set strategy. You just got to go in thinking about guys that you're hoping will make it to you. Don't necessarily worry about position in the first few rounds. If you can draft the strategy that you're going for, fine.
And he's trying to wrap it up, so let me get into this. In the late rounds, were you trying to wrap up?
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Late rounds. So here's the late rounds. So what I always do is I have a list of the guys that I like late. Every single one of these guys are young with upside. Every single one of these guys is a running back or wide receiver. In a 10 or 12 team league, I never take 2 quarterbacks. I never take 2 tight ends. End of the draft, I just have my list of guys that I like, and I load up, and they're lottery ticket guys. So it's got young guys with high upside. For you older people in the league, what we always compare it to, why would you take a guy in the late rounds like a Mushi Muhammad back in the day? He's going to get like 800 yards, 6 touchdowns, great. He's going to be somewhat productive but boring. Like a Nate Burleson this year, whatever. He's going to be boring. Instead, take a Ryan Broyles, this guy with a huge upside with those later picks. Kicker, always your last pick. Then defense is, I never take a defense in the middle round, and neither should you. Here's the reason why. 2 years ago, or last year, San Francisco was the #1 defense taken. Average pick was around, in some leagues, as high as the 6th round, which is nuts, but normally around 8 or 9, and somebody's like, wow, at least I got the best defense. Guess what? The Niners ended 7th best defense last year, and that seems to happen every single year. So we love Seattle like pretty much everyone else this year. It's our #1 defense, but there's no reason to take them in the 6th, 7th round, because it's so tough year to year where they're actually going to finish. So go ahead, do the close.
And one other tip too, don't always feel like you have to draft a kicker if your league doesn't make you.
Oh, love this move.
Draft a running back with upside, maybe a Stacy for the Rams who has a very small chance of having an instant impact. A guy that is in a battle or could have value if a guy gets hurt, and just ride him out for the whole preseason, and then pick your kicker up if the guy doesn't end up having value.
And if he does pan out like Alfred Morris last year, who in early drafts people were drafting with this pick instead of taking a kicker, he really panned out. Obviously, he was named the starter, so then you cut somebody else for the kicker, and if you did that,
you could say he panned out.
You could say he panned out.
Namco's over here, Dustin's over here. Post stuff in the forums. I know that was kind of just a lot of information getting thrown at you, but moral of the story, draft who you get excited about. Don't go in with too much structure.
Value.
First few rounds, it's all about value, not necessarily position. That's all you need to know.
Good luck this season. Draft.